So we have our character here, our PopCan character, and let's take a look at moving our PopCan around, right? So using the keyboard to, we'll use our arrow keys to essentially move our character. So what we want to do is inside of our PopCan character controller, I'm going to double click that script, and we're going to use a method. So let's go ahead and clean up some of this stuff. Let's delete this. So we're just looking at, we have our open close curly braces, which is identified by this line. Just some basic notes here. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a mono behavior, a method designed by Unity called fixed update. So you're going to write void fixed update. And so you want something that looks like this. Now, what this does is this runs every frame. So if I type print here and I write hello and I save this and I attach my PopCan character controller, oops, this should be in a string. And all this does is this print is it prints it to the console. So let's take a look at how this functions. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that PopCan character controller script that we're editing, and I'm going to drop it right on my Cano here. And I'm going to hit Control Shift C or go to Window, and I think it's under General and Console. Yeah, so Console there, and it opens up this console window. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and press play, and what you'll notice is it's running. It's this 100, 293 or whatever. It just keeps going up. It's actually constantly printing hello in a row here. So it's constantly printing it nonstop. So what it does is it's going to check whatever script or code we put inside of here every frame. Like, so every time the game's running, it's going to check this. So what we want to do is we want to check for um, player let's see, player selections or keyboard selections, right? So let's start off by doing a very basic one that'll move our player forward. So there's something called an if statement, and what that does is that checks if something is happening. So the way an if statement looks is it looks a little bit like a method, but you write the word if, and then open close parentheses, and then open and close curly braces. And so if whatever condition that's inside of these parentheses is true, we're going to do something. What we want to do is we want to get the up arrow key, right? So we're going to go input dot um, get key, right? Let's see, get key. And the key code we're looking for is dot, and you can see there's A, alpha, these are all our keyboard stuff, is really just up arrow. And what we can say is we can test this to see if it works by throwing another print statement in there, right? So if we press the up arrow on our keyboard, we will put pressed up arrow. All right, I'm going to save that, and let's go ahead and press play. And remember, this script will not run if we don't have it on here. And so I'm in my console and I press the up arrow, and it doesn't seem to be working. Let's see if it is mapped properly. So here's our can, and I believe I typed that. Yeah, PopCan controller. Let's make sure it's saved. And input, I got key up arrow. Looks about right. Let's make sure that in our edit project settings, or I'm sorry, edit, let's see. So I figured out what the issue is. This this is marked as private. It needs to be public in order for our inspector to read it. So let's go ahead and try that again. So just so if you need to, it's public void fixed update. If we push our up arrow, let's see what happens. So I'm going to press play here. And now I press the up arrow on my keyboard. You can see it says pressed up arrow. Okay, that's pretty cool, but that's not actually moving our can. So let's go in here and let's take out this print statement here because now we know that it does register a up arrow. And what I want to say is this, right? So notice my can, which this script is attached to, has a transform here. And what we're going to do is access the translation, which is this position. And it consists of three numbers, a x, y, and a z, which is called a vector. So this is a vector 3 because it has three parameters. So let's take a look at what this does. So inside of this, what I'm going to write is transform dot translate. And what I can do here is do a 0, 0, 0, right? And what this is referring to is the translation of the position here. So if I push my up arrow, right, what I can do is I can say, okay, what I want it to do is on the z-axis here, I want it to move 1 unit. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to press play. And now you can see, oh, I'm sorry, that's the x-axis. You can see it moves when I push the arrow key, right? So we just got to tweak that a little bit. So this is the x, this is the y, and then here is my z. So if I press 1 here, and I press play to play that, and there we go. I press the arrow in the scene. You can see in my game view, my can is moving. If I want to make it move backwards, I can copy that same line, right? Paste that, and I can say if the down arrow, right, key code down arrow, I can make this -1. So let's jump back in here, press play. So I can move them back and forth. Now, if I want to make him go left and right, I can copy this again, and I can say, hey, instead of my down arrow, let's do my left arrow. And what I'm going to do is make this 0. And instead of transform.translate, what I want to do is do the rotation. So we can do transform.r rotate, and I want to rotate it on the y. And let's say we do -1. I'm going to save it. Now the y-axis, if you're ever unsure, is if you look here and I left click, you see I get those 2 arrows. You can see I can rotate it. And if I move to the left here, you can see I get a negative number. So in my code, when I play this now, I can now move to the left, I can move forward. Let's go ahead and knock out that the right arrow. So we're really just going to copy this, bring it down here, and then change it from left arrow to right arrow. And I can make this a +1. And let's kind of move our camera around a little bit. So I'm just going to select my main camera here, just so I could see it a little bit better in my scene. Move it up, hit E to bring it down a little bit. And if I grab my main camera and I drop it on top of Cano, it'll actually become a child of Cano. And as I move it around, it follows him. So if I make this a little bit bigger, this plane, and I just throw a cube in there and just kind of as position markers, and will create some materials in a little bit. You'll get to see that, just so you can see them in 3D space. Now when I press play, you can see I can move, I can rotate, I can walk backwards, something like that. So what we'll do in the next video is we'll trigger our animations, and we'll actually look at a way of maybe writing this a little bit cleaner, and using a vector 3 dot forward. and a way to smooth it out with the time. And I'll explain all that stuff in the next